everybody, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Funny enough, I have recorded this intro like 3 times because I misspoke, or at least was about to misspoke, because usually when I start off I usually say welcome back to another review, and this is not a review, this is a discussion. So back for another video, back for another discussion, and this one's rather short just because I have formed my own conclusions today, because I was just kind of wrestling with this specific question, which was brought about after my viewing of Challengers, which I've done a review for. I wasn't too fond of Challengers, and primarily why I was not so much of a fan of Challengers was a lot to do with the attitude that it was displaying, a lot to do with the filmmaking being more or less pornographic, and servicing more or less a hormonal response and less so do with developments and characterizations. But it brought up an interesting question, which is, it's something that I feel that primarily Hollywood, not filmmaking proper, specifically in Hollywood in the mainstream front, there seems to be more of a capitalization on making filmmaking or cinema more sexy. We've discussed this before on the channel, a lot about shock value and just projecting, certain imagery, nudity, the utilization of sex sequences, where it's properly placed. We've discussed this before on this channel. I'll link the videos at the end of this video so you guys can see thoughts on that. But I want to get just more direct, which is, can cinema be quote unquote sexy? Now, my conclusion to that question, because it's interesting, because cinema can basically be whatever it can be. It wants to be. It's an art form. It's expressive. So literally anybody can do what they want with it. And for us as the consumers, we are allowed to say whether or not we like what we are tasting. So in the literal sense, yes, you can do that, but more in a preference, and just, I guess, in your viewpoint, your perspective of cinema, at least in my viewpoint, I think that cinema, if you were to look at the term sexy, obviously you view it from a social landscape. It's just by attraction, by desire, by that, if we were just to go by that terminology, I think cinema can definitely be sexy in that it can be attractive and it can be desirable, and it cannot interfere with the overall filmmaking of the narrative, anything like that. I think that's been shown many, many times. There are films that are very handsome looking, that are very pleasant to hear, all that sort of stuff can be very attracting, and is very attractive in terms of just the cinematic language, how I take to film. There's definitely films that are quote unquote sexy, but of course we are not talking about that. We're talking more or less in the context of like Challengers, a film that relies much more upon the hormonal response, the sort of horny nature. Is that appropriate? Can that be good storytelling? And in my book, if it's anything like Challengers, I would say no, just because I don't think that, like I said in the review, I don't think that that horniness is a supplement for good storytelling. I don't think that produces good storytelling as much as it just makes everyone out as one is the same. And it sort of comes back to my conversation about sexuality in film, about the physicality, that's the intimacy, that sort of feeling that Challengers, if you've seen Challengers, is trying to get out of you. I just feel is very pornographic, and it doesn't lend itself to good storytelling as much as, say, as I was saying the latter, the former, with my description of Sexy. You know, a film that is just well made, a film that is really well told, and a film that just grabs your attention. You know, yes, that's happened many times. You know, and will continue to do so many times. But I've noticed that it's more or less the latter, where it is just trying to replicate that feeling on a social level. And I just don't think that feeling is representative for film. Like I said, the only time where I feel as though that is appropriate is within, like, an erotica, because that is what you're coming for. You know, that is the feelings, that is how it's being set up. I mean, there's nothing more to that film outside of just that. You know you're coming into something automatically that is pornographic, you know, and that has less of a care for certain things, you know, and those films I don't really care about, you know. But it's to say, when a film tries to operate on a different manner, and it's, again, just kind of just falling back into that same mentality, more or less, just again being pornographic and being labeled a different way. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, as with Challengers, like, people are viewing it as like some very interesting deconstruction of these three personas, and it's just like, I don't see that at all. Some people perceive it as a comedy, but I don't think the film itself was wanting to be a comedy. It wanted to be taken seriously. Like, I just, you know, I think that cinema is more attractive when it is doing stuff well, when it is just doing things out of just hormonal responses, or acting like that as its primary resource, its behavior. It's just not that interesting to me. It's just more annoying and not as informative. So, you know, so I think that the terminology of sexy, I think that cinema is sexy when it is like I'll put it this way, just to kind of like show a little bit of myself a little bit. My version of sexy is intelligence. My version of sexy is someone who is intelligent, obviously attractive to some manner. I'm not just, you know, I have my standards, obviously. Yes, and men can have standards too. Don't give me that bullshit. But I have my own standards, and my standards have some attention on attraction, but also there is the other parts of that, the intelligence, the care of their overall just behavior, their sense of purpose. The same sort of traits, those sort of things that I desire in that sense is basically what I'm looking for in cinema. What I'm not going in for cinema for is porn. I'm not looking to see people get intimate. I'm not looking to see a bunch of sex scenes. I'm not looking for that sort of stuff. But it seems as though that Hollywood is gearing in that direction, and the actors are kind of following suit, and they're like fine with it because of the disguise of artistry, or just maybe just a lack of care. Who knows? But it seems that that's the way of it. You know, just sexy is the sort of the trend, you know, at least in mainstream Hollywood, in the mainstream media. And it's not sexy. It's, like I said in the review, it's more or less annoying and just completely lacking in substance. You know, just absolutely no merit outside of just seeing people take their clothes off, you know. So it's only valid in erotica, but even then it's just worthless, you know. The only reason why I say it's good for erotica, because that's just what that genre is. But in that genre, it's not interesting, you know. It's just like whatever, but at least there is a place for it, you know. There is something of a place for that to exist. But it doesn't mean, though, that it is warranted. It doesn't mean that it is not still pornographic and not all these things. It's just to say that there's a category for it, you know? And I just don't fancy that category. And it seems as though that some people do fancy it, and I just don't see where the good storytelling is. I really, really don't. So yes, cinema can be sexy, but only when it's being intelligent, when it is attractive, aesthetically speaking, and generally having more of a care for, having a care for themselves while also having a consideration for others. Same thing for film. A film that cares about its story, but also takes into consideration the outside perspective of how it may sound, like just being in the social world, just looking for a good person, and that's in turn in cinema just looking for a good story. That is what's sexy. What isn't sexy is just taking off your clothes. That's not sexy. That's perverted. And I'm not saying that that's the case in Hollywood, but it seems that that's where we're kind of leaning towards. So, but those are my thoughts on that. I don't know, found that interesting. So you guys let me know your thoughts. Do you guys think that cinema is sexy? Do you guys think so? I know it sounds kind of strange, but you guys let me know. I mean, just with Challengers coming out, it just kind of brought up that question in my head. I was like, is that valid? Can cinema be sexy? And I'm like, yes, only within a certain term, or by a certain definition, not by the general conceit, the general definition of what you consider sexy in the social landscape. I would disagree to that. I would detest that in cinematic language. But in what I'm describing as sexy, I would welcome that in cinema, but not the general conceit, the general definition of sexy. So, but you guys let me know. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.